Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Dead Space 3 demo walkthrough. This is the newly released to everybody preview of the game coming out extremely soon, at the beginning of February, and we are once again back in the capable hands of the engineer Isaac Clarke and his buddy Carver if you're playing co-op, because one of the main tenets of the new game is this ability to have this drop-in, drop-out co-op, which I'm not showcasing here. But if you've got the demo, you probably know all about it. And this is a pretty interesting full circle for my channel, so for those of you who are new, who've not been with me for the entire duration, which not many have, because, you know, 2 years is a long time on YouTube and a lot of people tune out. First guide I ever made, first really important guide I ever made was Dead Space 2. It was a Zealot guide and I really enjoyed it. It was successful for my channel back when I was really small, and I was proud of it. That was the main point, I was proud of it. So getting to cover Dead Space 3 is going to be a special occasion for me, and judging by the demo, the game is going to be solid, but I've got to say, guys, I did not get that special feeling from this demo that I get with Dead Space. I don't know why, I'm not entirely sure how that works, but it didn't. It's not a bad game, it's a great game, it's functional, it feels good, it's the Dead Space we all know and love. Sure, it's a little bit more action focused, a little bit less horror. I just didn't get the feeling, and I don't know why. Maybe when I get the full game it'll be completely different, but at this moment in time I'm a little bit underwhelmed, so I'm going to be an open book when I play it. I can't wait to play the full game. I'm sure my opinions will change, but as it stands, they've changed a lot of things, and I don't know how they're going to affect the game. The first real change that I noticed is the weapons. The weapons, before, if you've played a Dead Space, you'll know you could generally carry about 4 different armaments on each of your slots, and they were a choice. You only had the access to 4 weapons. If you played the game, you know, at a more competent level, I would say, you probably didn't even use 4 weapons, because Dead Space utilised a drop system where the more weapons you had, the more different types of ammo dropped, so you ended up getting less ammo for the guns you generally use, and it was spread across the guns you had. So one of the more intelligent techniques was perhaps picking 2, picking a main weapon and a backup, you know, when shit hits the fan weapon, and that way you could maximise on the ammunition you got. Well, on this game, they've taken that initial principle of these weapons and they've twisted it on its head. Before, you got the nodes to power up your suit, power up your guns. It was all this node system and this interlinking of abilities. That is all gone with the Lux. It's been replaced with loot, believe it or not. And I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work, but I hope it works the way I would like it to. Because you kill things, you smash boxes, you find bits of guns, bits of machinery, and you can take all this stuff to the upgrade stations and create new weapons. You can create all different kinds of stuff. You can upgrade weapons, you can adjust weapons, you can change weapons, you can give them attachments, you can change how they function, what they really excel in. You can essentially make the weapons your own. You can combine weapons together so that the secondary function is actually a different weapon. It's potentially a very creative and limitless system, but I have absolutely no idea how it's going to work. And there's a part of me that hopes that if you know what you're doing with the game, and you've got enough knowledge of the systems at play, you can get really strong really early, or really effectively, just by using knowledge, and that is my favourite kind of mechanic in a game. At the same time, for balance reasons, breaking the game from Chapter 1 is something that I know Visceral will not want to be able to be done, even if it is possible, and they will probably try to mitigate any possibility of that. So I have no idea how it's going to feature or how it's really going to work, but just judging by this demo, it's insane. For instance, the upgrades on the suit, the stuff you can do with the suit is so much more fleshed out. It's a lot different than I was expecting, and you're not actually going to see any of this in the demo. If you saw me live stream my first playthrough, you'll have seen all that, but this is just going to be literally a walkthrough of the content. So I make a conscious effort not to upgrade anything. I don't upgrade my suit, I don't upgrade my guns. This is literally just a clean run with no upgrades, just the standard stuff you start with. And that's really for brevity reasons, because I didn't want the videos to be too long, because this demo should have been out months ago. There's no reason why it should be out so close to the damn game. We all knew we were going to like it, we all knew we were going to buy it. It's like, come on folks, really? But you'll also notice that this game has taken a step further when it comes to the cinematics. Dead Space 2 had a lot of set pieces, a lot of interactive set pieces with quick time events. This game looks like it's going to have a lot more of them, and when you play them on co-op, they're actually different, which is interesting, but I'm hoping the game doesn't try to be Uncharted in snow with, you know, monsters, because that is not the Dead Space that I want at all. But this guy here is either going to be a standard enemy like a new brute, or a new kind of sub-boss, or he's literally a boss. He's going to be something along those lines, because you can't kill him in this sequence, but you will have to fight him. Luckily enough, it's pretty simple. One thing to avoid, do not mess around with the roly-poly stuff that I tried to do in a moment, because it just didn't work. I saw him going for the charge, I decided to roly-poly, and he still got me, because there was no iframes, there was no, you know, protection. It was a silly thing to do. I could have stasised him, and I could have probably done some extra damage. So, learn from your mistakes, or learn from my mistakes is probably a better way of putting it. As soon as you shoot all the tentacles off, he's going to get those familiar looking ball sacks that we shot off in the zero gravity moments of Dead Space 2, from the superconducting, you know, like jizz missiles firing creatures. I can't remember the name of them, but if you played Dead Space 2 you'll know them well. And then he wanders off. He goes, you know, for a tea break, which is kind of stupid, but we'll let him go. The weapons you start with on the game, or the demo should I say, plasma cutter, the old faithful. Even though in this game it's definitely different, because, you know, you can upgrade it a lot, so it's probably going to get real good towards the end of the game. And then the second weapon is a combination of an assault rifle and a force gun, which is really useful, because the assault rifle fires faster than you think it would, and if anything gets close you can just force gun them to the ground. And I don't know, balancing this game to me seems like it's probably going to be a nightmare. It really does. This section here, I thought it was the moment where the heads jump onto the bodies and animate them, but it's not, so you don't have to do this. Nothing happens in this room. I was just being overly paranoid. But it's definitely a good mentality to get into on Dead Space, because the amount of times you'll enter a room and it's filled with bodies but there's no necromorphs, and then an infector comes and reanimates all of them. If you move the bodies and you dismember them and all that good stuff, you will fight nothing but the infectors, and it makes those rooms extremely easy. Another fear I have over playing this demo is that Visceral have gone out of their way to stop you from being able to do that in those certain sections where you can kind of stop the enemies spawning. Because there's a moment coming up where, as I say, there's these head creatures that jump onto dead soldiers and they reanimate them and they start shooting at you. You cannot move the bodies, you cannot dismember the bodies, you can do nothing to the bodies to stop that sequence from happening. And that doesn't really seem like in the spirit of Dead Space to me, but who knows. So this is probably the most controversial part of the demo. We are shooting humans. It does add for an interesting dynamic. The game wants you to use the cover system, but I will never use the cover system because it looks ridiculous, and anything that looks as ridiculous as the cover, I'm not going to use it. I would much prefer to do what I'm doing now, do the shoulder third-person trick, you know, keep my awareness up, and just be aware that when you kill the soldiers, they can turn into necromorphs. Necromorphs do turn up. The soldiers and the necromorphs will fight. It's, as I mentioned, it's an interesting dynamic, and if it works, I think it's going to be really cool. If it doesn't, it's probably going to suck. Because one thing that sucks on any game where the enemies can hurt each other is the way they program the AI, and the way that they make it so that their priorities are always you over everything else. So you'll walk into a room where there's an interesting firefight happening, and as soon as anybody sniffs your presence, they immediately start gangbanging you. Happens on Halo, happens on a lot of games, and I'm hoping that, you know, through intelligent design, we're getting away from that and we're making it much more organic, much more realistic. If monsters in space can be real, or any kind of semblance of realism. But the strategies are very similar. You seem to have an abundance of ammunition on the demo. I don't know if it's going to be any stricter when you're playing on the harder difficulties, because one of the main tenets of Dead Space, is the fact that you're always kind of struggling for ammunition. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. Long-time fans will notice a lot of character changes. The necromorphs do look different. There is a story and a fictional reason why they look different, which is cool. And I think they look different for the better, because there is a lot of mutation going on. There is a lot of diversity. But that is the end of the first section of the demo, guys. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.